I call Alfred Ngaro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise and take a call on the Residential Tenancies Amendment Bill in its third reading. Can I also commend the Minister and also the Select Committee and the process in which we heard submissions on this bill. Mr. Speaker, the previous speaker talked about the issues around both insulation and also the issues around heat pumps and ventilation and heating in houses. That member would know that, because they were present for the advisors, that the Building Home Improvement Regulations of 1947, which still stand today, still stipulate under the code that there be provision for both ventilation and for heating. So nothing's been taken away, Mr. Speaker. Those provisions are still there. We know that we had the territorial authorities talk about the fact of enforcement. We've talked about that, and in a moment I'll talk about in the bill the importance of how do we enforce those measures that are there. So I just want to set the record straight. Provision is in there, in the code, the Building Home Improvement Regulations of 1947, which still stipulate that there must be adequate ventilation and adequate heating. We know that in a number of occasions for some tenants, it is the issue of just simply opening up windows, curtains and so forth. So there may be some form of education and support and information that needs to be given. Mr. Speaker, there was also the previous member talked about the aspect of the insulation and the heating. I want to say that in the 2016 budget, there was the warm-up program, which was part of the insulation of over 300,000 homes throughout New Zealand. This was a subsidy which allowed for different landlords and owners to be able to apply for a subsidy, which allowed them to have a subsidy for both the insulating of their homes, whether they be rental properties or their own, but also inside that subsidy, there was also a provision for heat pumps. So I just want to say that on the record, there still is that provision that's continuing on. That's about $36 million that's continued on for that provision. Can I say that on the record, what has happened and is part of this bill is to ensure that we are wanting to make sure that homes are warmer, are drier, and also are safer. If we take the safety component of that, one of the things that's important around this bill, and one of the provisions, is the ensuring that every single rental property by 1st of July 2016 will have a smoke alarm. And that's critically important, Mr. Speaker, because we know there has been tragedies. The reports of that is that there's some 129 potential tragedies that have happened per annum, annually, because of the lack of having adequate response. And so therefore the smoke alarm is a first point of call to be able to warn the occupants of the premises. So now this is going to be mandatory. This is going to be mandatory right throughout, and it's not going to wait till 2019. This is going to be mandatory by 2016, 1st of July. Mr. Speaker, we have to say that's an important part of this clause. The other thing I want to talk about is the insulation. It's all very well to turn around and hold up big fluffy bits of insulation and show the small bits and then the big bits, and it actually can create an image and a perception that the bigger bit is warmer than the smaller bit. What that member won't know, and again, I could remember as a tradesman going through many houses and many homes, crawling up in ceilings and under floors, doing the wiring and so forth. The majority of homes from 1978 were not the fluffy bits of green. In fact, that is called the green insul fluff. That's actually a new product. That's not the original products that were used. The products we used were what they call as insul fluff. Okay, it was a spray-on product. So it's not a correct perception to create on the two sizes. That's what was actually used back in 1978. Okay, and then came along was pink bats, which is a fiberglass sort of substance and a product that was used before we had that green insul fluff. So that's not really a true picture. The other thing too, Mr. Speaker, is that if you look at the officials' report, so if you think about the insulation from 1978, so no insulation is 100% energy loss, and it's in the report here. So there's about 100% energy loss when you have no insulation. We know that, that's clear. When you have from the standard from 1978 to 2008, the efficiency and the energy loss in there was something like 58%, which is, to be regarded, and that's when over that period of time. However, when you look at the retrofitting of the current building code of 2008, the energy loss was 48%. In other words, though those who are over there were saying we should retrofit to the new code, you're only talking about an efficiency of 10%. Now, the cost of that average form of retrofitting is going to cost about $3,400 per home. That's a standard 3-bedroom brick and tile house. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about the cost of making sure we're efficient and effective in what we're trying to do, this bill meets that. The last thing I want to say, Mr. Speaker, in my contribution in this third reading is the conversation about the new Healthy Homes Bill that's come out by Mr. Andrew Little, talking about the fact is that this will make it mandatory right across the board. Well, if you read the details in the bill, the mandatory aspect of that bill will be not till 2023, where in this bill it's 2019, where they have to comply within their 3-year period to make sure there's insulation top and bottom, there's smoke alarms by 2016. This bill is going all the way. We've not done, as in the previous Labor government, in 9 years of 50,000 homes, but in the national government, the current government, we're talking about 500,000 homes to be insulated, to be warmer, to be drier, and to be safer. Mr. Speaker, this government is pragmatic, it's practical, it's doing the things that make a difference. All the rhetoric on the other side, okay, is smoke and mirrors, but when it comes to the details, to the facts, in the reports, that's what makes a difference, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to commend this bill to its third reading and look forward to its implementation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I commend this bill to the House.